Aaron Glenn spoke at the latest NFL League owners meeting and had a lot to say about the state of the roster, the players, contract extensions, and the new regime's coaching ideologies. And everything we thought we knew about this team is about to change. And we're going to break it all down, guys. What's up, Jet fans? I'm Julian Lacosto, joined by my co-host, Nick Perry, and this is the Gang Green Report. If you're tuning in, hit that like button on the way in and subscribe if you're new so you can stay up to date with all things related to the New York Jets this offseason. Today, guys, we're going to be diving deep into New York Jets head coach Aaron Glenn, potentially hinting at a role change for star running back Breece Hall. He spoke a lot about things relating to the state of the roster, contract extensions, coaching ideologies. But one quote really stuck with me regarding our beloved star running back, Breece Hall. And this was tweeted out by Rich Samiti stating, I think mentally he's in a good place, but I would say we have 3 running backs on this team that we're going to utilize as much as possible. Now, this shouldn't be taken out of context and make you think that, oh, we're getting rid of Breece Hall, we're going to trade him, this, that, and the other thing. But it should lead you to think, are the Jets going to go opt for more of a running back by committee type style of play this season? Glenn's comments signals that the Jets could share the workload among Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis. Rather than having one workhorse back, the idea is to mix up the attack, similar to what Detroit Lions kind of done over the last couple of years in the backfield tandem with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They split snaps, but also divided the carries in a way that maximized their strength. Nick, what are your thoughts on the Jets potentially adopting a running back by committee approach like the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, I feel like I would love to see it. I think we've had good success with running back by committee in the past. We haven't seen it in a while because I feel like Breece is just that standout back who's been so good. I think all 3 running backs give us so much to desire for. Breece, we know, is that standout talent and has the speed even after coming off that ACL. Yes, it was 2 seasons ago. Still, who knows if he's fully recovered. And then Braylon, we saw he can plow you over with the force and his size. And Isaiah is a good mix of both. Good size, good strength, speed, a little bit of everything. He can also lead a charge as well and hopefully be a game changer for us. You know, God forbid Breece goes down or God forbid Braylon goes down. I feel like he's a good one who can just step up and really fill that hole in the backfield for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we haven't had in a really long time, probably since like Thomas Jones and like Sean Green, guys like that. But, let's look at the numbers, guys. So the Jets overall in 2024 were dead last in the NFL in rushing attempts and carries. Breece Hall had 209 carries to lead the way, Braylon Allen with 92 carries, and Isaiah Davis with 30 carries. I think they had around 360, but I only considered actual run design plays versus, instances where Aaron Rodgers scrambled out of the pocket. You have wide receiver end arounds. I didn't consider those in these. But of those 331 of the 360, even with the 360, we were still dead last in the NFL in rushing attempts and rushing carries in general. In percentage terms, Hall accounted for roughly 63% of those carries. He had 209 of the 331. Allen takes about 27.7 with 92 out of the 331. And then Davis contributed around 9% of those carries. And I believe a lot of those were like later in the season when we were losing a lot of games, guys were hurt, stuff like that. So you didn't really see a ton of Isaiah Davis. He got here and there. Now, in contrast, the Detroit Lions ranked 3rd in attempts with 534 and also 3rd in the league in touchdowns with 29 rushing touchdowns. David Montgomery, 185 carries, and Jahmyr Gibbs, 250 carries, which is more than Breece Hall. But obviously, the grand scheme of things with the amount of sheer carries they had as a team, assuming these 2 backfield stars handle nearly all the team's 435 carries as a rushing unit, Montgomery shares is about 42.5%, and Gibbs was about 57.5%. So what does this tell us? The Detroit Lions in general, the roles are clearly delineated. Gibbs is that primary explosive weapon, while Montgomery provides a reliable every down option for them as a secondary option. The Jets, meanwhile, have the ingredients to have a similar split, but it could mean a reduced workload for Hall in general if Allen's role is expanded as well as Davis, especially with the arrival of guys like Justin Fields, who is a rushing quarterback. That's obviously the biggest talking point of the offseason is we're probably going to turn to more of a run style offense because of him. He's going to run the ball a lot. He had 106 carries in 2022, 124 times he carried the ball in 2023. That will eat into Breece's numbers a bit as well. Nick, do the numbers shock you at all, or how do you think this will play out with the Jets if they end up splitting the carries?
Yeah, I feel like the numbers, if we're looking at the Detroit side of things, don't shock me or jump off. They jump off the page at me, but don't shock me in how much they have run the ball at all. Because you knew that was going to happen when Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted. You don't draft Gibbs at 12 and not use him, especially with a guy that explosive with so many amazing traits coming out of Alabama like that. The way Montgomery runs and plays, I think having that explosive talent is huge and fits perfectly with their style of offense that they were running. I believe our numbers definitely stand out and are a little shocking in the sense of how little usage all of our backs got, especially Braylon after he showed he has what it takes to be a clear bruiser and like downhill runner. And then I think also just shocking from Breece. Breece had such a standout season. The one before he was, did he take a little bit of a step back, a little bit just because of like the injury, but he found his way later on in the season. And I think it was kind of a shock that we didn't run the ball as much, but I feel like we kind of expected some of that, especially with Aaron Rodgers coming in. I think it'll be hard for Breece to accept at first, which is understandable. But at the same time, if we were winning, I hope it doesn't matter in the long run. And plus, everybody should have more of the tank later on in games, later in the season, if we're fighting for a playoff spot. I think that's also where Detroit was so lucky is that their guys are well rested, relatively healthy. There were some they were them two. I think it was David Montgomery had that big injury at the end of the year, but he eventually did play in the playoffs. So give some in the tank left at the end of the year. So I think that'd be great for us.
Yeah, exactly. You hit on a couple of big things, but adopting that running back by committee, ultimately, that approach means that there's going to be injury mitigation. Sharing carries can reduce the wear and tear on Breece Hall overall, preserving his effectiveness over the season. You're going to have guys like Braylon Allen, who's that power runner, that guy that can plow you over, and Davis kind of has a little bit of that versatility in short yard situations. It can complement Breece Hall's dynamic playmaking ability if we start sharing those carries among those three. And then, of course, similar to Detroit, the Jets could keep opposing defenses guessing by kind of varying the run attacks. You could even have two running backs at the same time, run a lot of triple options with Justin Fields. It makes for a very exciting approach to the offense as well. However, if the team leans to heavily split the workload, like we kind of mentioned, Hall's role will kind of diminish, and his production over the years that we've seen, especially being a guy who was at the top of the league in all-purpose yards the last couple of years, we could see that be a dip. It could also mean that there might be more of a balance in his play style. I could definitely see them trying to use Breece as more of a pass catcher in this new style of offense as well, which he really excels at. Over the years, we've seen Breece be not only a really explosive runner, but especially towards the end of last season or the season before that, he came on as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And he was actually somebody that, Rodgers dumped the ball off to a bunch of times, and he ended up running for, a couple yards after the catch too, and making plays on after the catch, which was very impressive. Nick, overall, how do you see this workload, or how do you see it working out in general for the Jets and Breece Hall?
Yeah, I think now, I think you hit a perfect point that I didn't even think of with having Justin Fields at as your quarterback like that, and with hopefully three good. We know we have two good running backs that you can really run those triple option plays. There's so much you can do, but I think, like I said before, I think it'll all work out. I hope and pray that it works out because if we're winning, it should not matter. I think obviously who wouldn't want more carries? Jahmyr Gibbs, like Dave Montgomery. Of course they want more carries, they want more touches. But if you're winning and you're as dominant as them, who cares? If you're going for that playoff spot, I hope that's your ego is not going to get that big. Speaking of Breece, I don't think he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would be like that. He voiced his frustrations about not getting the ball, which is absolutely understandable. But at that time, he was an absolute workhorse for us and a beast, and he deserved that ball. Definitely didn't have the room that we have now. Definitely didn't have the quarterback like we have now as well. So yeah, I think you said it as well. I think the workload will go down for him. but it's going to go down in a good way. Injury mitigation, skill sets, like you said, and it would just be defensive uncertainty with option plays. It should work out very well for the Jets and Breece Hall, but only time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not really, no, but I definitely think that we might see Breece Hall kind of right around where that Jahmyr Gibbs or even like a Montgomery stat line will be if we split between the three guys at least, probably around that 45% of the carries rather than being that sole workhorse. But guys, what do you think about this potential shift? Will it benefit the Jets offense or could it limit Hall's impact? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy this analysis, like the video and subscribe if you're new. And as always, guys, go Jets.